Shalom. Let me get straight into this lesson. But been doing some deep study going into the Jakes, the so-called black men that ruled Europe for over 1,000 years. So I'm putting together lessons to go into the history, but I'm gonna get into the King James. I'm gonna show you, and I did a lesson on this maybe about a week ago. About a week ago. Salaki, my voice kind of choppy. So let's get more into this. So when you go to Google, and you put in Charles II. I'm gonna show you all this, what all this means. Who the hell is Charles II, and why is it so important for you to know this? Right, Charles II. Let me go here and show you this. And like I said, I did this lesson about a week ago, but I wanted to go into more detail of it because I got more lessons I'm going to be doing going into this. All the kings that ruled so-called Europe actually was renamed Europe. But I'm just using that word so you can know what I'm saying. So this the real Charles II, and he was a matter of fact. Let me go back. Yeah, let's get into this. So let me take you back. So right here is King James, right? King James was the so-called black man. He didn't write the Bible. That's another misconception. A lot of people think out of their ignorance they'll say that he didn't write the Bible, and he wasn't a so-called white man. Because when you go to King James, matter of fact, let me do that real quick. Give me 1 second. Right. So when you go to Google, the mainstream lie, right? When you go to King James, they got him portrayed as a so-called white man, but this is a forgery. This is a fake. And the so-called white man got some nuts. He got some balls on him to do tell you these blatant lies, because we're in a time when things are being revealed. Matter of fact, let me go here real quick. Luke 8 and 17, I believe. It says, let me just read this. I think it's Luke 8:17. It says the phrase "there is nothing covered that should not be revealed" is a quote from Luke 12:2-3, meaning that eventually, and that's actually Luke 8:17 as well, right? Eventually, everything hidden will become known. It implies that secrecy and concealment cannot last forever, and the truth sooner or later will be revealed. So that's the time that we're in right now. So this has been unchallenged. You know what I'm saying? This the lie that most people believe in. That's why when so-called white people and other, especially Edomites, when we tell them that so-called black men ruled this whole world, when they go to Google and they see this lie, they can't believe it. They can't understand it because they perpetuate hatred for you, Jake. That's how much they hate you, that they can't see you in no kind of power. You know, but you can be in cognitive dissonance all you want to, but the truth gonna stand. And you can look this up for yourself. This is in a national portrait gallery, if I'm not mistaken, in London, towards the bottom. Go look this image up if you don't believe me. But this is the real King James. The imagery that you see today is a forgery, it's a fake. The so-called white man is a liar. As you see Donald Trump, the master of liars, lying straight to your people face. I'm actually been keeping up with that devil and that whole fiasco, but they getting exposed. So this is King James' son right here, Charles the First, that sat on the throne. I'm gonna read this so you can see he's a so-called black man. Let's read this. It says the Protestant Negro Moorish king Charles Stuart the First was the son of King James, the son of James, right? And his dark-skinned Danish wife, Anne of Denmark. Charles became the ruler of England in 625 AD, following the death of his father, the king who suffered from a severe speech impediment. It says married the dark-skinned Henrietta Maria, the daughter of the so-called black-skinned Queen Marie de Medici of France. It says the couple had 7 children, with 3 sons and 3 daughters to survive infancy. It says in 642 AD, Charles fought a civil war, which years later he was defeated and captured. During his trial, he was found guilty and beheaded. His son Charles II continued the Stuart line in AD 685 AD. It says King Charles I is the eighth great uncle of Elizabeth II. So this the real, so this King James' son, right here, Charles I. Right, so let's keep going. Let's go to his son, Charles II. So let's read this. It says the so-called black Protestant, and this is the one that was known as Black Boy, Charles II. So why the hell was he known as Black Boy? Well, I'm gonna show you his image that they got on the Google, and I'm gonna show you what Google says about him. Read this again. The so-called black Protestant and Catholic King Charles II was the son of Charles I. And that's why I be, brothers be trying to educate brothers that a lot of times when you see Catholic and Protestant, Jake actually was the originator of this. The so-called white man, he just steal everything and repackage it. He's literally done that to everything. He's took what we created and repackaged it as he came up with it. So the Protestant and Catholic thing actually was, Jake had a lot of influence on that. Then the so-called white man came into power and stole it and repackaged it to you. It says, it says King Charles II was the son of Charles I, who was beheaded in 649 AD. That was Oliver Cromwell and his whole, the Edomites that was trying to take back over. And they actually took over. It says while residing in France, a parliamentary exhibited a wanted poster. 1 second. Salaki about that voice. Wanted poster throughout England for his arrest. The poster referred to him as a tall, so-called black man. This is all facts. It says Charles' nickname while living in England was the Black Boy. And during his exile in France, he was called the Blackbird Most Royal. Well, there you go. And that's a close-up of Charles II. Okay. And I went into this before. So this is actually Charles I getting beheaded. Let's go into this real quick. And they actually got this at the United Kingdom. What is that? Where the Parliament meet at? You know what I'm saying? I forgot what it's called. The Commons, the House of Commons. Like you got the House of Representatives in the United States, and you got the House, the Senate, right? The House of Representatives. Then you got the Senate, and then these Edomites got a similar setup, but it's different. But it's kind of one and the same in the United Kingdom called a Parliament, where Jake set all that up. It says this image is the actual eyewitness account of the so-called Black King Charles I, King of Scotland, who was being prepared to be beheaded by the English, the Edomites. Right? So this right here at the bottom, if you can see this devil, Oliver Cromwell. You know what I'm saying? So it was a battle going on. It's always been a perpetual fight between Esau and Jacob, right? Right here. It says King Charles I had an unlucky Salaki distinction of having his head cut off by the English so-called white subjects in his realm. King Charles I wasn't the only one who suffered this indignation. When the English overran the country, they hung and decapitated the men, raped the women, burned the citizens at the stakes, and dashed the children against the stones. You notice that's in the scriptures. We're gonna get our payback. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Why is that scripture in the scriptures about this right here? There's been a long history of this. This ancient hatred goes back into Esau and Jacob. That time frame, all the way to this current day. It says this is a bit of history that is not taught nor reported in the annuals of world history. They don't want you to know this. That's why they always show you movies about you being slaves. They always show the movies about the so-called Mexicans being subjugated. You know what I'm saying? All the tribes of Israel being under extreme oppression and suffering. And that's what they show you because that they wanted you to let you know that they want to put that in your mind that you was nobody. We ruled back then, we're gonna rule again. We seeing this all come back together. What was done in the past will be done in the future. There's nothing new under the sun. Every dog got their day. So we got punishment. It's best to get your ass whooped right now so we can get the blessings later. Let me get this. So when you go to Google and you put in Charles II, this was the imagery that comes up. This is a forgery. And when you start reading about him, matter of fact, let's go here. Go to Google. I put in, was Charles II known as Black Boy? Check this out. According to Google, it says Charles II of England was nicknamed Black Boy. Why would they call a so-called white man Black Boy? It don't make sense. But I showed you the images and I showed you proof that these were so-called black men. And it was many more kings, many more rulerships, many more dominions that we ruled over. This is just a very speck of it. I'm gonna be going into lessons exposing all this so you can get your identity back, Jake. You just was no slave. And they put that false title on you as you being African. African in this new speech. There's no such thing as African people. Even the so-called Africans, their true ethnicity is Hamites. They Hamitic. African, the word Africa is a Latin word. They put that word there when the Edomites came and conquered that region and renamed it Africa. It says Charles II of England was nicknamed Black Boy by his mother Henrietta Maria due to his dark complexion and his dark eyes. They're giving you a description. I just showed you pictures. Historical sources state that he inherited these features from his Italian and Danish. No, he got it from his father. And I showed you proof. So he was known as Black Boy. Why would they call a so-called white man Black Boy? But when you go to his image, this is the lie right here. And that's why when we tell so-called white people, right, we ruled back then for a long time, they can't believe it because this Google Google is owned by the J people run it, Google, right? So they're gonna edit and censor information, and they're gonna push that you was nobody but slaves, so they can keep that control over you, far as that mental captivity. But this truth is to free you from that mindset and give you your true history, so you can come back to your senses, all right? You come back with some dignity, right? So this is we're a raw people. You know what I'm saying? We just in captivity. We're at our lowest point right now. It's like when kings will go into captivity, kings and princes and royal families, they will be treated, with, it'd be like, it's like a war trophy. So the Edomites, that's why they overly oppress Jake, because they trying to get their lick back, so to speak. But we're going to get our lick back soon. And it's going to be hell to pay for what they've done. They'll get double to what they've done to us. And no one can stop it, right? Just because a ninja or Edomite go on TikTok and complain and say we're a hate group, that's not going to stop the truth. That you just marking yourself. So you can't stop the truth. The truth is going to prevail at the end of the day when it's all said and done. That's that remind me of that scripture in Ecclesiastes. It says, the king is strong and, a woman, it was talking about a king, woman, I think, strong drink. But it says overall, what's over everything is the truth, right? Hopefully this lesson was edifying. Call Allah Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachak, Quadash. Shalom.